The morning mist clung to the surface of Clearwater Lake like a shroud, broken only by the gentle lapping of waves against the rocky shore. Dr. Sarah Chun had been called to many wildlife emergencies in her 15 years as a raptor rehabilitation specialist, but nothing had prepared her for the phone call she received at dawn. A local fisherman had witnessed something that made his blood run cold. Someone had thrown what appeared to be a large bird from a speeding boat into the deep waters of the lake. Hit like if you believe in second chances for wildlife. Sarah's hands trembled as she loaded her rescue equipment into the back of her truck. The caller, an elderly man named Frank Morrison, had been specific about the location and timing. He'd watched in horror as a dark sedan pulled up to the boat launch just after midnight, and two figures had carried something large and struggling to a small motorboat. Within minutes, they were speeding toward the center of the lake, and then he'd seen them hurl their burden into the water before racing back to shore and disappearing into the night. The drive to Clearwater Lake took 40 minutes through winding mountain roads, each turn bringing Sarah closer to what she feared might be a recovery mission rather than a rescue. She'd seen the worst of human cruelty toward wildlife, but deliberate drowning crossed a line that made her stomach churn. As she pulled into the boat launch parking area, Frank Morrison was waiting for her, his weathered face etched with concern. "Dr. Chun, thank God you're here," Frank said, his voice heavy with emotion. "I've been out on that lake since 4 in the morning, circling the area where I saw them dump whatever it was. I thought maybe, just maybe, if it was still alive." Sarah grabbed her binoculars and scanned the lake's surface. The water was calm now, reflecting the pale morning sky like a mirror. "Show me exactly where you saw this happen," she said, her professional composure masking the dread building in her chest. Frank pointed toward a section of the lake about 200 yards from shore, where the water was deepest. "Right there, near that cluster of dead trees sticking up from the water." The boat circled that area twice before they threw whatever it was overboard. Without hesitation, Sarah began unloading her inflatable rescue boat. Every minute counted if there was any chance of finding a survivor. As she worked, Frank continued his account, his voice shaking with anger and disbelief. "I should have called the police right then, but I thought maybe I was seeing things wrong. Who would do such a thing? But when the sun came up and I got my boat out there, I found feathers floating on the surface. Big, dark feathers." Sarah's heart sank. Large, dark feathers could mean only one thing in this region: a bald eagle. The thought of someone deliberately drowning one of America's most iconic birds filled her with a rage she struggled to contain. She finished inflating the rescue boat and tested the small outboard motor. "Frank, I need you to show me the exact spot. Can your boat keep up?" Within minutes, both boats were cutting through the morning calm of Clearwater Lake. The sun was climbing higher now, burning off the mist and revealing the lake's crystal-clear depths. As they approached the area Frank had indicated, Sarah began a systematic search pattern, her eyes scanning both the surface and the underwater terrain visible through the clear water. It was Frank who spotted it first. "There," he shouted, pointing toward a partially submerged log about 50 feet away. "Something's moving over there." Sarah gunned her motor and raced toward the location. As she drew closer, her heart nearly stopped. Clinging to the waterlogged branch was a magnificent bald eagle, its white head barely above the surface, wings spread wide and waterlogged, struggling desperately to stay afloat. The bird's yellow eyes were wild with terror and exhaustion, but it was alive. "Easy, beautiful," Sarah whispered as she cut the motor and let her boat drift closer. "I'm here to help you." The eagle's response was immediate and fierce. Despite its weakened state, it mantled its wings and let out a hoarse cry of defiance. Sarah could see that the bird was a mature adult, probably around 8 or 9 years old, with the distinctive white head and tail feathers of a fully grown bald eagle. But something was wrong with its left wing. It hung at an odd angle, suggesting injury or damage. Sarah had rescued hundreds of raptors, but approaching a terrified eagle in water presented unique challenges. The bird could still inflict serious damage with its powerful talons and beak, and any sudden movement might cause it to lose its grip on the log and sink beneath the surface. "Frank, can you position your boat on the other side of the log? I need to create a barrier so he can't swim away from me." Working together, they maneuvered their boats to contain the eagle's escape routes. Sarah pulled on thick leather gloves and prepared her largest rescue net. The eagle watched her every movement, its keen intelligence evident in those piercing yellow eyes. This was a bird that had survived in the wild for nearly a decade, and it wasn't going to surrender easily. "I know you're scared," Sarah said softly, her voice carrying across the water. "Someone hurt you and left you here to die. But I'm not going to let that happen." The eagle's grip on the log was weakening. Sarah could see its talons slipping on the wet bark, and she knew she had only moments before the bird would lose its battle with exhaustion and hypothermia. With practiced precision, she cast her net, not over the eagle but into the water beside it, creating a floating platform the bird could grab onto. The eagle eyed the net suspiciously, then made a decision that surprised both rescuers. Instead of fighting the foreign object, it actually moved toward it, perhaps recognizing that this strange floating thing offered better purchase than the slippery log. Sarah held her breath as the eagle carefully positioned itself on the net's edge. "That's it," she encouraged. "You're so smart. You know I'm trying to help." Now came the most dangerous part. Sarah had to somehow get the eagle into her boat without causing further injury to its damaged wing or getting seriously hurt herself. She'd been slashed by eagle talons before and knew the damage those powerful feet could inflict. The eagle seemed to sense the critical nature of the moment. As Sarah slowly began to lift the net, the bird didn't struggle. Instead, it fixed those intelligent eyes on her face, as if trying to read her intentions. There was something almost human in that gaze, a recognition that this person represented its only chance for survival. "You're going to be okay," Sarah whispered as she carefully maneuvered the net and its precious cargo toward her boat. "I promise you, I'm going to find out who did this to you, and I'm going to make sure you fly again." The transfer from net to boat took nearly 20 minutes of painstaking care. The eagle was larger than Sarah had initially estimated, probably weighing close to 12 pounds, with a wingspan that would have measured over 7 feet when fully extended. Up close, she could see the full extent of its injuries. The left wing showed signs of trauma, possibly from being struck or caught in something. There were also scratches and abrasions on its legs and feet, suggesting it had been handled roughly before being dumped in the lake. But what struck Sarah most was the bird's demeanor. Despite its ordeal, despite being captured by humans twice in less than 12 hours, the eagle maintained a dignity that was both heartbreaking and inspiring. It lay quietly in the bottom of the rescue boat, conserving its energy, but its eyes never left Sarah's face. Frank followed Sarah's boat back to shore, both of them moving slowly to avoid jarring the injured bird. As they approached the boat launch, Sarah was already on her phone, calling ahead to the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center to prepare an emergency treatment area. "This is Dr. Chun," she said into her headset. "I'm coming in with a mature bald eagle, probable wing fracture, severe hypothermia, and unknown internal injuries. The bird was deliberately dumped in Clearwater Lake and has been in the water for approximately 8 hours. I need the warming chamber prepared and Dr. Martinez standing by for x-rays." The drive back to the Rocky Mountain Wildlife Rehabilitation Center was tense. Sarah had the eagle secured in a specially designed transport carrier, with heating pads to combat hypothermia and monitoring equipment to track its vital signs. Every few minutes, she glanced in her rearview mirror to check on her patient. The bird remained alert but quiet, a good sign that it wasn't going into shock. At the rehabilitation center, a team was waiting. Dr. Elena Martinez, the center's veterinarian, had worked with Sarah for over a decade, and they moved together with practiced efficiency. The eagle was transferred to an examination table under warm lights, and the real assessment began. "Definitely a fracture in the left wing," Dr. Martinez confirmed as she studied the x-rays. "But it's a clean break, very treatable. The hypothermia is our immediate concern, along with possible aspiration pneumonia from being in the water. This bird is lucky to be alive." As they worked to stabilize the eagle, Sarah found herself studying its face. There was something remarkable about this particular bird, an intelligence and awareness that seemed to go beyond typical raptor behavior. When their eyes met, she felt an almost electric connection, as if the eagle was trying to communicate something important. "What do you think happened to him?" Dr. Martinez asked as she administered antibiotics and pain medication. Sarah's jaw tightened. "Someone captured this bird, probably illegally, and when they realized they couldn't keep it or sell it, they decided to get rid of the evidence by drowning it. It's the most cowardly thing I've ever seen. The eagle's recovery would be long and uncertain." Wing fractures in large raptors were serious injuries that required weeks of careful rehabilitation. But as Sarah settled the bird into a quiet recovery enclosure, she made a silent promise. This eagle would not only survive, it would thrive. And somehow, she would find the people responsible for this cruelty. Over the following days, Sarah spent every spare moment with the eagle, whom she had begun calling Thunder for the powerful voice he'd used during his rescue. The name seemed to fit his personality perfectly. Despite his traumatic experience, Thunder showed remarkable resilience and an almost uncanny ability to understand the rehabilitation process. Unlike many raptors who fought every aspect of their medical care, Thunder seemed to recognize that the humans at the center were trying to help him. He tolerated bandage changes, took his medications without struggle, and even appeared to enjoy the gentle physical therapy sessions designed to maintain muscle tone in his injured wing. Dr. Martinez was amazed by Thunder's cooperative behavior. In 30 years of wildlife veterinary work, I've never seen a raptor adapt to captivity this quickly, she told Sarah during one of their daily rounds. It's almost like he understands that this is temporary, that we're preparing him to go home. Sarah had noticed the same thing. Thunder watched everything with those intelligent yellow eyes, seeming to catalog every procedure, every routine, every person who entered his enclosure. When Sarah approached, he would often move to the front of his perch, as if eager for their daily interaction. I think he knows I'm the one who pulled him out of that lake, Sarah told her colleague. There's a connection there that goes beyond normal animal-human interaction. As Thunder's physical condition improved, Sarah began the delicate process of investigating his origins. Bald eagles were protected under federal law, and their capture, possession, or harm carried severe penalties. Someone had committed a serious crime, and Sarah was determined to see justice done. She started by contacting local law enforcement and federal wildlife agents. The story of Thunder's rescue had spread through the small mountain community, and several people had come forward with information. A gas station attendant remembered seeing a dark sedan with out-of-state plates buying supplies near the lake around the time of the incident. A local motel clerk recalled two men checking out hastily in the early morning hours, leaving their room in disarray. But the breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Frank Morrison, the fisherman who had witnessed Thunder's dumping, had been doing some detective work of his own. He'd been asking questions around the lake community, and an elderly woman who lived near the boat launch had seen something significant. She was up late with her sick cat, Frank explained to Sarah over the phone. Around midnight, she saw a car pull up to the boat launch. Two men got out and unloaded something from the trunk. She said one of them was arguing with the other, saying something about getting rid of the evidence before anyone found out. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. Did she see the license plate? Better than that. She took a picture with her phone, thought it was suspicious behavior, and wanted to report it to the lake patrol in the morning. The plate's clear as day. Within hours, federal wildlife agents had traced the license plate to a rental car company in Denver. The renters had used fake identification, but security cameras at the rental location provided clear images of two men. The investigation was expanding rapidly, and Sarah felt a grim satisfaction knowing that Thunder's attackers would face justice. Meanwhile, Thunder's rehabilitation was progressing remarkably well. His wing fracture was healing properly, and he was beginning to show interest in food beyond the hand feeding that had sustained him during his first week of recovery. Sarah introduced live fish to his diet, watching with pride as Thunder's hunting instincts began to resurface. He's remembering who he is, Sarah observed as Thunder successfully caught and consumed a trout in his rehabilitation pool. The wildness is still there, just waiting to come back. But as Thunder grew stronger, Sarah faced a dilemma that every wildlife rehabilitator knew well. The more time she spent with this remarkable bird, the deeper their bond became. Thunder clearly recognized her as his rescuer and seemed to seek out her company. When other staff members approached his enclosure, he remained polite but distant. With Sarah, he was animated, vocal, and engaged. Dr. Martinez noticed the unusual relationship developing between Sarah and Thunder. "I've seen you work with hundreds of raptors," she said one afternoon as they watched Thunder perform his physical therapy exercises. "But this is different. He's bonded with you in a way that could complicate his release." Sarah knew her colleague was right. The goal of wildlife rehabilitation was always to return animals to their natural habitat with minimal human attachment. Birds that became too comfortable with humans often struggled to survive in the wild. But Thunder's case was unique in so many ways that normal protocols seemed inadequate. As Thunder entered his 4th week of rehabilitation, his wing strength had improved dramatically. He was flying short distances within his flight enclosure and showing all the signs of a bird ready to return to the wild. But Sarah noticed something troubling. When she wasn't around, Thunder seemed listless and uninterested in his surroundings. He would perch quietly, barely moving, until she appeared for their daily sessions. "He's waiting for you," Dr. Martinez observed. "The question is, what happens when you're not there anymore?" The answer came sooner than expected. Federal agents had arrested the 2 men responsible for Thunder's ordeal, and the details of their crime were even more disturbing than Sarah had imagined. The men were part of an illegal wildlife trafficking ring that had been capturing protected birds for sale to private collectors. Thunder had been destined for a wealthy buyer who wanted a tame, bald eagle for his private estate. When the deal fell through and law enforcement began investigating the trafficking ring, the criminals had decided to eliminate the evidence by drowning Thunder. It was a cold, calculated decision that showed complete disregard for the life of one of America's most iconic species. "They'll face federal charges," the lead investigator told Sarah. "Conspiracy to traffic protected wildlife, animal cruelty, and violation of the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act. They're looking at serious prison time." While justice moved forward in the courts, Sarah faced her own decision about Thunder's future. The bird was physically ready for release, but his emotional attachment to her created complications. She consulted with other rehabilitation specialists, seeking advice on how to proceed. The consensus was clear but difficult. Thunder needed to be released, regardless of their bond. Keeping him in captivity any longer would be cruel and potentially harmful to his long-term survival instincts. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this particular eagle was different, that their connection served a purpose beyond simple rehabilitation. The decision was made for her when Thunder demonstrated something that changed everything. During one of their daily flight sessions, Sarah noticed another bird circling high above the rehabilitation center. It was a female bald eagle, probably attracted by Thunder's calls during his exercise periods. Thunder's reaction was immediate and dramatic. He became agitated, calling repeatedly and flying to the highest perch in his enclosure. His entire demeanor changed from the calm, cooperative bird Sarah knew to a wild creature responding to the call of his own kind. "She's been coming around for 3 days," Dr. Martinez told Sarah as they watched the aerial display above them. "I think she's looking for him." Sarah felt her heart break and soar simultaneously. This was what Thunder needed, not her companionship, but the chance to return to his natural social structure. The female eagle's presence was awakening instincts that no amount of human care could satisfy. Preparations for Thunder's release began immediately. Sarah chose a location along the Colorado River, about 50 miles from where he'd been rescued, in an area known for its healthy bald eagle population. The site offered excellent fishing, suitable nesting trees, and minimal human interference. The night before the release, Sarah sat quietly beside Thunder's enclosure, trying to process the mixture of emotions flooding through her. This magnificent bird had come into her life under the worst possible circumstances, and their bond had been forged through trauma and healing. Now she had to let him go, trusting that she'd given him everything he needed to survive. Thunder seemed to sense that something significant was about to happen. He was more active than usual, preening his feathers obsessively and calling frequently. When Sarah approached his enclosure, he fixed those piercing yellow eyes on her face with an intensity that took her breath away. "Tomorrow you go home," she whispered to him. "Tomorrow you get to be wild again." The morning of the release dawned clear and cold, with a crisp autumn wind that would provide perfect flying conditions. Sarah, Dr. Martinez, and several other staff members made the journey to the release site, with Thunder traveling in his familiar transport carrier. The female eagle had been spotted in the area the day before, raising hopes that Thunder's transition back to the wild would be supported by natural social connections. At the release site, Sarah opened Thunder's carrier and stepped back. For a moment, the eagle remained inside, as if gathering his courage for this final step. Then, with a powerful thrust of his wings, he launched himself into the Colorado morning. Thunder's flight was magnificent. His injured wings showed no signs of weakness as he climbed higher and higher, riding the thermal currents with the skill of a bird born to soar. Sarah watched through binoculars as he circled the release area, seeming to orient himself to this new territory. Then something magical happened. The female eagle appeared, rising from her perch in a nearby cottonwood tree. She approached Thunder cautiously, and the two birds began an aerial dance that was both beautiful and primal. They circled each other, called back and forth, and gradually began flying together in perfect synchronization. "He's found his mate," Dr. Martinez said softly, lowering her binoculars. "Look at them fly together." Sarah watched through tears as Thunder and his new companion soared higher and higher, until they were just specks against the blue sky. This was the moment every wildlife rehabilitator worked toward, the successful return of an injured animal to its natural life. But for Sarah, it was also a profound goodbye to a creature that had touched her soul. As the team packed up their equipment and prepared to leave, Sarah took one last look at the sky. Thunder and the female eagle were nowhere to be seen, having disappeared into the vastness of their natural habitat. It was exactly as it should be, but the emptiness Sarah felt was overwhelming. The drive back to the rehabilitation center was quiet, each team member lost in their own thoughts about what they'd witnessed. Releases were always emotional, but Thunder's story had affected everyone involved. From his near-death experience in the lake to his remarkable recovery and final flight to freedom, this eagle had demonstrated the resilience and majesty that made bald eagles such powerful symbols of survival and renewal. In the weeks following Thunder's release, Sarah found herself scanning the skies whenever she was outdoors, hoping for a glimpse of the bird she'd saved. She knew the chances of seeing him again were slim. Eagles had vast territories and could travel hundreds of miles in their daily activities. But she couldn't help looking, couldn't help hoping for one more connection with the remarkable creature that had changed her understanding of the bond between humans and wildlife. The answer to her hopes came exactly 1 month after Thunder's release. Sarah was conducting a routine survey of eagle populations along the Colorado River when she spotted 2 large birds perched in a massive cottonwood tree near the water's edge. Through her binoculars, she could see they were bald eagles, a male and female sitting close together on the same branch. As she watched, the male eagle turned his head in her direction, and Sarah's heart stopped. Those yellow eyes, that distinctive head shape, the way he held himself with quiet dignity, it was Thunder. She was certain of it. For several minutes, Sarah and Thunder looked at each other across the distance. The eagle showed no signs of recognition or desire to approach, which was exactly what Sarah hoped to see. He was wild again, wary of humans, focused on his natural life. But there was something in that steady gaze that seemed to acknowledge their shared history. Then Thunder did something that brought tears to Sarah's eyes. He spread his wings wide, showing off the full span of his magnificent flight feathers, and let out a powerful call that echoed across the water. It was the same call he'd used during his rescue from the lake, but now it carried a different message. This wasn't a cry for help. It was a declaration of freedom, strength, and survival. The female eagle responded with her own call, and together they launched themselves from the tree. Sarah watched as they soared over the river, hunting together, living the life that Thunder's attackers had tried to steal from him. The sight was so beautiful, so perfectly right, that Sarah felt her heart might burst with joy and pride. As she packed up her survey equipment, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. Thunder's story had begun with an act of cruelty that could have ended in tragedy. Instead, it had become a testament to the power of compassion, the resilience of wildlife, and the profound connections that could form between humans and the natural world. The legal case against Thunder's attackers concluded with both men receiving significant prison sentences and substantial fines. Their conviction sent a strong message to others involved in illegal wildlife trafficking. The protection of endangered species was taken seriously, and those who harmed protected animals would face the full force of the law. But for Sarah, the real victory wasn't in the courtroom. It was in the sky above the Colorado River, where Thunder flew free with his mate, living the life he was meant to live. Every time she saw bald eagles soaring overhead, she thought of the magnificent bird she'd pulled from the dark waters of Clearwater Lake, and she was reminded of why her work mattered. Thunder's story became legendary within the wildlife rehabilitation community. Sarah was invited to speak at conferences and workshops, sharing the details of his rescue and recovery with other professionals. But she always emphasized the same key points: the importance of never giving up on an injured animal, the remarkable resilience of wildlife when given proper care, and the profound responsibility humans had to protect the natural world. Years later, Sarah would return to the Colorado River area during her eagle surveys, always hoping for another glimpse of Thunder. Sometimes she would spot pairs of eagles that might have been him and his mate, but she could never be certain. It didn't matter. What mattered was knowing that somewhere in the vast wilderness of Colorado, a magnificent bald eagle was living free because someone had cared enough to pull him from the water and give him a second chance at life. The bond between Sarah and Thunder had been brief, but transformative for both of them. For Thunder, it had meant the difference between death and freedom. For Sarah, it had reinforced her commitment to wildlife conservation and reminded her of the incredible privilege of working with some of nature's most magnificent creatures. Thunder's legacy lived on in other ways too. The publicity surrounding his rescue and recovery had led to increased funding for the Rocky Mountain Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. Donations poured in from people who had been moved by his story, allowing the center to expand its facilities and help even more injured wildlife. Educational programs were developed around Thunder's story, teaching children and adults about the importance of protecting bald eagles and other wildlife. Sarah often used his case as an example of how individual actions could make a difference, whether those actions involved rescuing an injured animal or simply reporting suspicious activity that might harm wildlife. The female eagle that had appeared during Thunder's rehabilitation became part of the story too. Wildlife biologists theorized that she had been his mate before his capture and that she had been searching for him during his absence. Their reunion and continued partnership demonstrated the complex social bonds that existed among bald eagles, bonds that were often underestimated by humans. Thunder's story also highlighted the ongoing threats faced by bald eagles and other protected species. While their populations had recovered dramatically since the dark days of DDT poisoning in the mid-20th century, eagles still face challenges from habitat loss, pollution, and illegal human activities. His case served as a reminder that vigilance was required to protect these magnificent birds for future generations. As Sarah continued her work at the rehabilitation center, she carried Thunder's memory with her every day. Each new eagle that arrived for treatment received the same level of care and commitment that she had given to him. Some recoveries were quick and straightforward. Others required months of intensive rehabilitation. But every bird that returned to the wild was a victory, a continuation of the mission that Thunder had helped her understand more deeply. The lake where Thunder had been dumped was eventually designated as a protected wildlife area, partly in response to the publicity surrounding his case. New regulations were put in place to prevent similar incidents, and increased patrols helped ensure that the area remained safe for the wildlife that depended on it. Frank Morrison, the fisherman who had witnessed Thunder's dumping and played a crucial role in his rescue, became a volunteer with the local wildlife protection agency, using his knowledge of the lake to help monitor and protect its animal inhabitants. Thunder's story had ripple effects that extended far beyond his individual rescue. It became a symbol of hope and resilience, proof that even in the face of human cruelty, nature could triumph with the help of compassionate people willing to take action. The bond between the eagle and his rescuer demonstrated that the relationship between humans and wildlife didn't have to be one of dominance or exploitation. It could be one of mutual respect and care. In the end, Thunder's greatest gift to Sarah and to everyone who heard his story was the reminder that every individual life mattered, whether human or animal. The magnificent bald eagle who had been thrown into a lake to die had not only survived but thrived, becoming a father to future generations and a living symbol of the wildness that still existed in an increasingly developed world. Sarah never forgot the moment when she first saw Thunder clinging to that log in Clearwater Lake, fighting for his life with a determination that took her breath away. That image remained with her as a powerful reminder of the strength and resilience that existed in the natural world, waiting to be supported and protected by those who understood its value. Thunder flew free, somewhere in the vast Colorado wilderness, carrying with him the love and dedication of the humans who had refused to let him die. His story would continue to inspire others to protect and cherish the wildlife that shared their world, ensuring that future generations would have the chance to witness the majesty of bald eagles soaring through American skies. The connection between Sarah and Thunder had been forged in crisis and strengthened through healing, but its true power lay in the moment of letting go. By releasing him back to the wild, Sarah had completed the circle of care that defined the best of human-animal relationships, helping without possessing, healing without controlling, and loving without demanding anything in return. Thunder's flight to freedom was more than just the successful rehabilitation of an injured bird. It was a testament to the possibility of redemption, the power of compassion, and the enduring strength of the wild spirit that no amount of human cruelty could ultimately destroy.